Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today with me is Bjorn. Bjorn, tell us a little bit about yourself and what your company does.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Gleb. So my name is Bjorn Reynolds. I'm the founder of a company called Safeguard Global, and we're really a future of work organization that enables our customers to locate, recruit, hire, and pay their workers globally, no matter their worker categorization. So we consider ourselves sort of a workforce enablement platform in the modern world.
Excellent. And one of the things you've worked hard on is addressing proximity bias among globally distributed teams who are working remotely. Tell me a little bit more about what you found when you're addressing that. Well, first of all, define how you mean proximity bias before we chat about what you've done to address it.
Yeah, and it's one of these really curious terms that's actually always existed, but now has come into prominence with sort of this push and pull towards return to office. In short, proximity bias really describes leadership showing favoritism or privileged treatment to employees or workers that have a closer proximity to them physically, which by default negatively impacts remote workers. And we're seeing that really come up from surveys that we're seeing through, whether it's through SHRM, where you're starting to see reports sort of 2/3 of supervisors that are in offices but also oversee remote works believe that they treat the two parties differently, and thus sort of alienating the work, the remote workers to some degree, because they feel not just alienated, but literally that their careers are more hampered because they're not in proximity to their base.
Excellent. So yes, that's definitely my understanding as well. And I published a Harvard Business Review article about how to address proximity bias. I'm curious about what you're doing and how it will compare to what the kind of things I've been advising my other clients to do.
Yeah, sure. You know what? It's the involvement that all organizations are needing to do to really lean into the future of work. And when I mean that, I'm really talking about leaning and engaging the workforce, the modern workforce, about who really want to be inspired to come to work for you. So first, at Safeguard Global, we talk a lot internally about breaking the muscle memory of how we used to act, right? So when we did all work in an office, or when we recruited location-based, you get that face-to-face time. But we've all had to evolve our culture for one. So how do you start to lead a remote-first culture, not a location-based culture? So that's one, is you have to evolve. But two, then, is you have to try and take subjectivity out of decision-making. And that's really what proximity bias is it's a measure of subjectivity. I'm close to you, I talk to you, therefore I like you. I'm going to promote you because I see you. Really what we started to do is to remove really into both individual, team OKRs, quarterly outcomes, really letting data start to decide who our superstars are, how are they dealing with their work. So you really take subjectivity out of any decision making, and you really make sure that as an organization you're putting in the tools, the technology, and the processes that allow you to find to find who's performing well based on what the company needs from them, rather than I like you, therefore I'm going to promote you. If that, so we've worked really hard on that, and it takes constant reinforcement from the top right down on how to continue to evolve and supporting those leaders, because it is I often think sort of for middle management, it's one of the toughest career points ever. You've gone from, hey, I can see you, I can train you, to now I need to evolve, and you need to be supported in that evolvement.
Yeah, okay, so that's really interesting. So you're looking at OKRs and you're trying to tie them to individuals. And then you start to talk about the managers. And I think with managers, when I work with clients, that's kind of where we start with training managers. And the first thing to train managers on is an awareness of this proximity bias, because many managers aren't even aware of this. So just having this awareness and talking about why it's a problem. I mean, we have extensive research showing that people who work remotely are individually, on their individual tasks at least, more productive than people who work in the office. However, the managers don't see this. So we see that managers grade down. They don't rate the people who work remotely as effective as they actually are when looking at their more objective metrics of productivity. And so that's one thing to do, to train managers on this challenge. And another thing to do is to have performance metrics that actually measure short-term goals. Not simply though, because OKRs tend to be tied to team goals. When you're thinking about how do you tie them to those individual goals, so something I've done with clients that really works well is to have kind of a 1 week or 2 week sprints where there's a meeting between the manager and the supervisor, and they set 3 to 5 goals for the week or 2 weeks. And then at the next period, when they meet again in a week or 2 weeks, they review those goals, which are tied to OKRs. They see where they're met, not met, and maybe the manager coaches the team member in problem solving them better, and then sets 3 to 5 goals for the next week or 2 weeks. So there's kind of a combination of awareness and also a short-term performance metric where the manager, in cases where there's no objective way of measuring performance, can look at their goal achievement.
Yeah, you know what? I think you're so right. As I said, it's, you know, I often remember talking to companies and they're like, look, we can't determine if our workers are more efficient. We can't, and we don't trust that they are. And imagine that as your foundation of a CEO. I don't trust my workforce. You know, that's a hell of a statement ready to come. Whereas, to your point, I want to lean in and educate and safeguard, because the outcomes to a successful remote hybrid policy is phenomenal. And you know, I'll give you an example here. We talk about individual sort of performance being higher or more efficient, but actually, you know, teams work happier. You know, we at Safeguard, we talk about work in any way. So that's the philosophy we want to embrace. You as a worker can choose the way you want to work with us, whether it's part-time, full-time, in a different country. You know, how do you want to engage with us? You have the choice. And back to your point, we can put the outcomes. Sorry. I always like to, over the last 2 years, we've hired over 200 engineers and product teams, utilizing the philosophy, we want the best talent on a global salary anywhere in the world, period. So we won't try and find the lowest common denominator salary. We're coming out and saying, here's a global salary. And of those 200 roles, over a 2-year period, our employee churn is 9%, when the market has been over 40%.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great.
And if you imagine the value that I get from that, you know, they know the code longer. You know, I'm not having to train, retrain, right train. You know, my efficiency is 100x somebody whose retention is 40%. Because I just think, and that's what I preach to people is, if you speak to today's workforce and you find the way to enable that, you're going to win. Yeah, that's the way to be.
And when your clients tell you, well, that they have difficulty trusting their employees, what do you do specifically besides saying about talking about, which is really important? What kind of tactics do you advise them to use to increase their trust?
Yeah, so again, first off, I think you've covered a lot of it. It's about awareness and education, right? It's because trust is something that is gained. It's not like you have to build between. And if you've not implemented the right policies to be able to build that trust, that's going to harm. Then it's also building awareness amongst people to go, look, the world's different, so how do you trust that I'm on? And it can't be, do you see a green light on Teams and you're working, you're not working? That's where it's building awareness for your managers going, here's how you now manage in this world. Here's how you operate. To your point, if you're putting 2-week sprints or if you're managing to outcomes, you can relax on, are you there at 9 to 5? You can relax, you can see the product of what people are doing. So I think it's the same methodology of it's constant reinforcement, but with an unwavering belief that this is, the genie, that the bottle is not going to go back. Genie's not going to go back into the bottle. And unless you change, you will only get the B or C workers. So they will fit into what you want. But we want the talent, so you have to evolve. And that's what I say to every CEO is, look, it's hard changing an organization, but we did it overnight. We did it within weeks back in 2020. So you can change an organization. You just have to be determined on how to do it. And then resolute, you're going to see it through. Don't backtrack.
Excellent. Well, I think those are great words on which to wrap up. As we think about wrapping up, what do you see as the future of addressing proximity bias in remote work? What do you see happening going forward?
That's a great one. I glibly, someone was prepping for this, told people we should hand out blindfolds to everybody who works. They can't, they can't work through. Sadly, as human beings, we are full of biasness, whether it's gender, proximity. There's a whole load that as organizations we have a duty to eradicate from the workplace, right? And I think this is another one where it's just constant reinforcement. It's where you see it happening. As a leader, you step into it, you question it, you're curious about decisions that leaders are making. So you don't, you start to force an open dialogue and communication. Why did you promote them? To help me understand. Let me get really curious about my org chart. So you start to see behaviors, but also, I think the involvement of our people management, of our human resources department to far more data-driven organization, again, will really take away some of that subjectivity we talked about at the start, Doctor, where I'm allowed to have proximity bias because the mechanisms that I can track people are subjective in nature rather than outcome driven. Then I think that makes a big difference. So look, I was the biggest skeptic to remote work pre-pandemic. I love having people in the office. I like seeing them, talking to them. We had no offices. We were open plan. The way I'd end this is, the one thing I saw during the pandemic, and everyone went home. The joy of the workforce to be able to leave the cities, leave the countries, and go back home means that's really where they want to be. And if our job is to have a highly motivated workforce that wants to be there, then a remote hybrid engages everybody. It stops people having to travel 4 hours to work every day. It stops mums having to rush and worry about picking, how do I mix a busy home life, busy their mums or dads? Its family life has changed, and it's wrong of us as business people to take that back when it's had such a benefit, such joy, that for me as a CEO, I would rather my employees had the flexibility to choose and be empowered than to have a forced track nature back to work. I couldn't ever see that happening.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Bjorn. This was very helpful. Really appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You have a great day.
And thank you to the audience for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you check us out and leave a review. It helps others discover the show and helps us improve the show. All right, everyone. I'll see you in the next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends.
Bye, everybody.